You can hear me now, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so you heard the part about Zoom having some technical hitches.
Yes.
So most people seem to be here, and it's only poor little Cavi that's having a problem. No, he's shaking his head. Okay, well, let me see. So I'm going to try and run the show, which is a little more. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. As you can see, our mics aren't working either, so we've had to change headsets and whatever, so who knows what's happening. Okay. Let's begin with some silence, since that's what we're called to do here. Let's just be, yeah? Let's just sit. Okay, taking a breath in, a breath out. Opening your eyes. And Kavi has arrived.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my God. I was blocked out of my own life for a minute. I'm very pleased to be back. And I see most people are here, so hopefully we can try and get through this as unflustered as possible. There are Zoom problems that Spencer and other people have reported, and I know they're struggling today. I did try to get to chat, but there were 700 people in the line ahead of me. So I thought I wouldn't wait for three days or something. So here we are. Okay, that's all I've got to say. I'm here and very grateful to be so.
Good. Good. So, I spoke this morning in various ways about the deep acceptance of what is here. What is here? What is here? It's an invitation to trust. Just a second. I need to change my my view here. There we go. An invitation to trust. Not the kind of trust that comes from a mind, the mind that hopes that things will be the way I like them, the way I want them, the way that makes me feel safe, the way that makes me feel comfortable, or the way that it's always been, because at least I know that and I feel safe in that. I know what the parameters are and how to function in that. Not that kind of trust. When trust comes from the mind that seeks a safety net, then there is no real safety or nourishment in that, because whatever the mind can conjure can also be the opposite. Yeah, whatever the mind conjures up, reality can also conjure up the opposite. Not that kind of trust, but the kind of trust that has nothing to do with the mind, that comes from the deepest acceptance of what is here, of what is here. Here I am, here I am. And the impulse, the movement is to watch TV. Here I am, and the impulse, the movement is to walk in nature. Here I am, yeah? So to trust, it's a falling. This kind of trust is a falling out of mind into the openness, to trust that whatever is seemingly falling apart in your internal world, in your external world, and they're one and the same, whatever is falling apart according to the mind's idea of how it should be kept together, whatever is falling apart in that, to trust that falling apart. And in that trust is a falling open. In that trust is a falling open. And that falling open is the deepest acceptance, that falling open into this, brings you into a natural acceptance of what is here. It's not something you have to think of. It's not something you have to make yourself do. It doesn't come from the willfulness of the mind, or the willfulness of the ego self, where I must practice acceptance. I must put effort into convincing myself that it's okay, that I can accept this. It's not that kind of acceptance. It's a natural, organic okayness that arises out of the openness of not trying to hold on to anything, not imagining how it should be, but just this, just this. You could also call that love. Again, not the love that the mind conjures up as some idea of me loving my experience, liking my experience, feeling pleasure, feeling bliss. Not that kind of love. It has no, it has no me in it. It has no self in it. Love is what remains when all attempts to control reality, to come to a conclusion, to resist, to create an enemy out of this, when all of that comes to an end, in other words, your internal world, the world fabricated by mind as a bunch of structures, ideas, concepts, thoughts of how it should be, how my life should be, and how my experience should be, when that internal world falls apart, is demolished, then you will know the true nature of love. And perhaps that's why we're seeing what seems to be a falling apart of our external world, structures, hierarchies, paradigms, things that we've taken for granted, the way of being, the way of operating in the world, and so on and so on. What we can trust, in terms of external authority and so on, seemingly is falling apart as a reflection of the deeper calling of the internal world to fall apart, so that we can come to know our true nature as openness. Openness is the same as love. There's no grasping, there's no resistance, there's no conclusion, there's no safety net created by the mind. It's an essential openness. You can call this beingness as well, that is always here, but gets covered up by so many concepts, ideologies, beliefs, mind structures that cloud the true meeting with reality as it is. So here we are with this wonderful opportunity, wonderful opportunity. It's less of a practice and more of a clear seeing, when we start to see how those internal structures are created, how there's a tightening, a grasping, a needing it to be a certain way, a conclusion about how it's wrong or how I'm wrong because I should be doing something else. When we start to really see that, then this elaborately constructed internal world can start to fall apart and fall open to reveal the true nature of love, of openness, of beingness, of presence. They're all the same. They're all the same words that point, they're all different words that point to the same internal or deeper dimension. And fear, giving our allegiance to fear, believing it to be true, getting addicted to the drama of fear, which runs away with itself in the imagination of what might happen and so on and so on, is is like the pin that holds all those structures together. Let's see if there are any questions or dialogues that want to happen at this point. Kavi, are you doing this?
I am doing this. Oh, hold on. A completely different end. I don't know what's going on for me today. We'll get Julie first of all. Hi, Julie.
Julie.
Hi, Julie.
It's asking me to unmute, which was interesting. I got a dialogue box.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. So
you're
that
here
took me a
anyway.
little second.
I can't see any Julie. Hold on. Can I see Julie now?
I'm here. I'm waving my, there we go.
I can see you now. Yes, here we are. Okay.
So I appreciate what you just said. It really feels like this is really what's transpiring for me right now with this need to control. And my mind is so, I don't know how else to put it, but almost like too on it. Meaning that all of this, I know my structures, I know my dynamics, I know my beliefs, I know how I get in my own way. I can inquire and I can ask the internal question and the answer comes right forth. And I don't know, today, and maybe because this was coming up, this meeting, I don't know, but I am just so angry. I am so frustrated with this tightness and this control. And it's not like it's there all the time. I mean, I've experienced what it's like when it's not there. I've experienced the falling without having to know what that next step is, or without having to know why things are going the way they are. So I know the experience, and yet today, in this moment, I am feeling this extreme anger, frustration, sadness, grief, a whole spectrum of feelings around this dynamic of control. And the only thing I can say is be with it. Be with this anger, be with this controlling nature I'm feeling right now. And that's really the only thing I can say about what's happening in me. And of course that brings frustration, and part of me wants to get out of it and I want to do this, and then it's just like, no, keep coming back. And so it's really hard right now in this moment to keep coming back. So I'm glad I'm on this with you today, because it keeps me coming back and facing that control. Because at the bottom line of that, I feel absolutely helpless and vulnerable. And I know that that's what I'm protecting. I cannot control anything, not one thing. And the old saying, you know, you can take your action, but you can't be attached to the results. I'm angry about that. I want the results. And I know that's my ego, and I know that's myself, and all of that. Like I say, my mind is too engaged. And I do practices, and I meditate, and I walk, and I pay attention to what I need right now. It's just a crazy moment for me right in this space, and it has been all day today. This is just where I'm at. I don't know if there's a question there, but it's something about control. It's just,
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you enjoy the juiciness of all that?
As I'm speaking, yes. Up to this point, I haven't.
Yeah, how juicy. There's all these energies. Yeah, energies. You call it anger. There's some intensity. There's, yeah. Even this. No need to control this. This is the storm that's moving in you now.
It is. It's
and
a
this
storm.
too passes, yeah? So this deepest acceptance, it's an invitation, or, you know, in everything. It's not a deep acceptance that necessarily has the desired outcome. Yeah, this is what we have to be careful of. Whether we're talking of deep acceptance, whether we're talking of openness, whether we're talking of tenderness, if there is an agenda, a subtle agenda, that if I practice this acceptance, if I practice this non-resistance, if I practice this being here now, then it'll take the discomfort away. There's a desired outcome. It is so subtle. It gets more and more refined. Can we truly be here? Can we truly be with what is without any agenda? Without any agenda. There's such an innocence in that. There's such a nakedness in that. There's such a tenderness in that.
And when you spoke about trust, that's what I feel is really calling to me. And I appreciated your distinction on trust as you know, that deepest acceptance and that willingness to not be attached to the safety net. And I feel in that deepest trust, I don't have control. And it's a willingness to not know.
Yes.
And that's hard for me.
Yes.
I must admit, I want to know. So this not knowing, yeah.
What do you think knowing will give you that you haven't got already?
It's the control. It's
And
having
then
a
what?
handle on things. It's knowing where things are coming from and where things are going.
And that makes you feel strong.
Yes. And protected and safe. And it's all an illusion. And it's
the master of your reality, the master of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not true, and I know that.
Yeah. Discover the true master. Discover the true master. The true master lives in the unknown, lives in the not knowing, and in that way can surf all storms, yeah, all waves. Yeah, that's the true master. The helplessness, that which we think is help. First of all, we have to admit our helplessness. The ego has to admit its helplessness. Yeah. In that, we're brought to vulnerability. But when we come to that vulnerability over and over and over again, when we come to admit our helplessness in the face of life that we cannot control, we are not the controllers of life. Life is lifing itself through us. individually and collectively. When we come to know that over and over again, when we bow down to it over and over again in our personal relationship to life, to our experience, we will come to know that which is truly invincible. And then we can say that we are a master of not knowing, a master of the unknown. And your true power is in that. Now, I know it's one thing understanding that, it's another thing living it and breathing it. But if you want true freedom, if you want to know true invincibility, true immunity, then you must come to this over and over and over again. In the meantime, or as well as, if there is anger here, let it be juicy anger. There's a difference between the juiciness of anger and the narratives of anger. There's a difference.
Thank you for this today.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie. We have Alan next. Hold on.
Hello.
Hi, Alan. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I have a feeling that every question has the same answer. So I already know the answer. But the thing that I'm addressing today is the process of compulsion or addiction. And I notice that, I have a collection of these sort of things. And I notice that the process is pretty much always the same. There's like the craving, there's the capitulation, there's the self-judgment, there's the emptiness. That's sort of a process that happens. And I'm sure that the answer, like I say, is the same as everybody else's. Nevertheless, do you have anything to say about that process? Did I lose her?
The addictive mechanism, whether it's the addiction to a substance, the addiction to romantic love, the addiction to hope of the future imagination, the addiction to fear, whichever one we're looking at, the mechanism is the same.
Mm-hmm.
The mechanism of addiction is reflecting to us how we give allegiance to the movement of mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You cannot control that movement by using the same mind to that moves to control it to stop the end result. If you're not happy with the end result, you can only find in yourself that place that is willing to devote itself to something deeper and more true than the movement of mind. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You have to find that place in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a moment by moment discovery. It's a moment by moment devotion
Mm-hmm.
to that which is here. If you like, it's a moment to moment invitation to death.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you are willing in this moment, as that compulsion arises, which is a compulsion of mind to seek something in the future moment that will satisfy or fulfill the emptiness that it feels now. It's an avoidance of emptiness, the emptiness of being. It arises in solitude, in aloneness, in discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so on. There it is. But in this moment, if you do not follow that compulsion to seemingly satisfy or fulfill the apparent underlying emptiness, the abyss of being that is here, then in that moment you die. There's a psychological death, a death of the seeking self. Now, for some people, that seeking self is all they know. Yeah, that's the majority of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are on a path of deeper inquiry and deeper presence and deeper foundation of living will see that that brings no satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So no control. You don't overcome it. You don't overcome it with a practice of presence. It's almost the opposite. You allow yourself to fall into the abyss in this moment, in this moment, in this moment, if you're willing.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Alan. We have Anne.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. For myself, I've lost about 75% of my income. And I'm an occupational therapist and a yoga teacher. I do a lot of manual therapy. And I have a lot of creative ideas about how to do some of the work I do online. But what I'm finding is that my body's perspective on this is completely the opposite. Like I'm getting severe tightening behind my eyes, and it feels like my body is being pushed down to the ground. This type of thing actually was in place before the pandemic arrived, but it's all very amplified right now. And so I feel like I have these two parts, the creativity, the ideas, the curiosity about learning about another way of doing my work, combined with a body that really feels like it just wants to die or sleep for a very, very long time. And so I'm telling myself, there's not a rush, stay present with this. And at the same time, the financial piece feels like a bit of a rush. And I'm also in this process being supported by my partner who works at a hospital. So I have fear about that piece as well. So, yeah.
Hmm. What can you trust in this?
I know it will all be okay. It always has been. It always has been. Yeah.
What's the rush? Yeah, so the rush sounds like you know what I'm hearing when you talk about the rush is this attempt to rebuild the structure. Mm. Which is the money piece, yeah,
Right.
the survival piece.
Right. Which, like I said, that was already there. It was there are certain things where this pandemic, it was like it just came in and fit itself really snugly into what was
Yes.
there.
Just intensifies or amplifies the paradigms, if you like, that were already operating so that you can really see them. Nothing new can be born until the old dies. Yeah, the body and the mind are pulling you in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to that which is more primary than mind. Trust it. Let it regenerate. There's no regeneration if we attempt to build our house on old foundations. Yeah, when we rush to rebuild our house in the midst of calamity, in the midst of destruction, before the ground has been cleared, then we're building on top of old foundations that haven't been cleared, and we're not building a strong house. Build your house, yeah, your internal house. Build your consciousness on new ground, but wait for that to be cleansed.
Okay. Yeah. It literally, when you describe that, that's my body right now feels like quicksand, like sand that just wants to sink.
Mm.
And the thought of building the foundation with kind of the broken pieces of what already was on top of quicksand, not so good. So yeah.
Mm. Wait.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Anne.
Okay.
We have James. James Q. Hold on. Hi, James.
Hi, I'm signed in under James Q, but I'm Donna, clearly.
Oh,
I'm
Donna,
female.
hi.
Hi.
Hi, Donna, James.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, I wanted to, a lot of what we're speaking about is already unraveling in my experience. So if I could just pick up on some of those themes. I can't see Amoda right now. Should I be able to see Amoda?
You should see
There
me
you
when
go.
I'm speaking, yes.
Oh, sure. Okay. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, so I just want to give a voice to, prior to the virus happening, what appeared to be in my experience was a very deep quietening and a real loss of interest in the psychological movement, and a maturing of that, and a maturing beyond also the fascination of the loss of what I deemed to be my spiritual life, and a really settling into this quietening, this really deep quietening. And then with the emergence of the pandemic, I note that there's quite a lot of internal friction coming to the surface again. There's a mixture, a myriad of different themes. It all feels like surface noise. But obviously there's parts of my experience which are engaged and attached to that particular theme at that particular time. But equally within that, there is just this really deep experience of something very deeply rooted in the ground of being, and an opening of my heart into experiencing all of it, all of what's happening, whether that be the arising of fear within my experience, having engaged with the news, or whether that's an extension of my heart into an incredible act of humanity that I'm witnessing, or whether I'm personally engaged in some friction from a relationship point of view, and there's sort of, you know, day-to-day sort of contractions that occur. And, you know, within that, I'm sort of, I guess, experiencing all of it. And part of what, there's two parts to my question, is it feels like there is a deeper letting go that wants to happen. There's something holding around my heart, and I can feel that there is, you know, talking about it now, it feels again, there's a control element to that, and I can see how that's manifesting in some of the themes within my experience. One of them being, there still seems to be some engagement with the overextension of the female in her loving persona, and the way that she cares and nurtures, but also the control mechanisms within that as well. And there seems to be a seeing of that. And then also the other part that I'm dealing on a very personal level, which is something that I seem to really find difficult to let go of, is when I feel personally humiliated. I was in receipt of quite an acute level of anger and resentment quite recently through this process, and it was connected to the father of my child, and it goes very deep in my heart. And so I'm still feeling that on a very personal level. And I guess my question is, you know, I feel that the allegiance is with the absolute ground of being, and that the silence that's present amongst all of it. But also it feels like there's a turn that's trying to happen. There's something that's trying to kind of come in that I can't quite turn towards and let go of, and to be able to fully embrace all of it. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. A process, an organic process of unfoldment is taking place in you. You have an awareness of its totality, of both the ground of beingness and the details that are happening with the contractions and so on. You don't have to do anything to speed that up. This is not a time to employ any tactics, yeah, to speed it up, to turn that corner that you speak of. You don't need to do anything. This seeing and this sensing of both the waves happening on the surface and the depth of the ocean, which are concurrent, yeah? They're not happening in opposition to each other, they're concurrent. This will, all you have to do is Well, nothing. There's nothing you have to do. This that you're experiencing is it unraveling itself in you so that you can live in the paradox of that. Yeah? The paradox of that is that there is the ocean of beingness and there is the waviness, both. And life will not, the waves of life will not stop. If there is a wave that was set in motion to do with something personal, like the father of your children and whatever that relationship has set in motion, that wave will continue until it doesn't. Yeah? Your deepening into beingness does not negate that wave.
No.
Yeah. So there's nothing you need to do to embrace it more. Just this ongoing availability for the whole, for the totality. Yeah? The surface and the depth, all of it. And you are that, which is the ever-present awareness within it all.
That is exactly what I needed to hear, Amoda. Thank you so much. I can see immediately where that part of the control is. And you know, it's almost that the subtle fear as I was receiving you, the purpose of my question is there's a little fear of missing the mark and failing to, you know, act appropriately in what's being asked. And so that's still, you know, part of me getting involved and feeling that there's a need for me to, you know, move into that next level of letting go of control. So I've received everything you've just said to me.
Relax. Relax in this. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Good question. We're ready for, are you okay?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah? Okay, we have Craig. Craig.
Thank you, Kavi.
Yeah.
During the break, was thinking, just kind of reflecting on what you said about where our allegiances are, and particularly about acceptance, Amoda Maa. And I've been reading your book, Embodied Enlightenment, and if you'll indulge me, I want to read a passage that you wrote. That it's bewildering when I read it. In the quiet spaces of my heart, I get it because I'm wired that way. My mind wants to resist it. So indulge me, please. Real love is radical. It is gentle yet fierce, tenacious yet selfless, unconditional yet uncompromising. Just like a mother, love gets the job done even when it's unpleasant. And just like a mother, she will do anything to protect her children. She'll even sacrifice herself. When things get tough, love is unafraid of getting her hands dirty in the cesspool of earthly life. Love has the fortitude to go into the dirty places, business, banking, politics, the food, pharmaceutical industries, the medical establishment, and even religion. Love in action has no vestige of self-investment in it. Rather, it's an action that serves the wholeness of life. The dynamic power of this love is transformative. In the willingness to enter the heart of darkness, that place where personal fear, horror, terror, and pain are the greatest, there is the potential for rebirth into the universal heart. the place where everything, both dark and light, is seen to be an expression of oneness. The beggar, the thief, the murderer, the terrorist, the deformed, the sick are all worthy of love's fulfillment. So, wow, every time I read that and have reread it, it kind of, as I said, evokes a kind of bewilderment. On the one hand, my mind is like somehow resisting it. And yet, when I'm quiet and I just receive it from the heart, then it's a beautiful thing. So, kind of staying on my theme from my earlier question today of earnestness, or at least being radically honest with ourselves. This real love you speak about is even fine with the fact that here I've been, on a spiritual journey for 4.5 decades, and somehow I'm not getting it. As far as I'm not fully awake to the truth of what I am. Am I more awake than I was 10 years ago? Oh, for God's sakes, yes. As bit by bit has fallen away. But I would appreciate, as I'm rather exhausted, as one person kind of alluded to earlier, exhausted from this search, and I'd like for you to speak about this real love as it relates to what I've just said here. And thank you.
To put down all notions of spiritual progress. To put down all hope of a spiritual destination. And to sit inside the devastation of not knowing if you are more awake than you were, not knowing what awakeness is, not knowing where you are going, not knowing if you will get there. And to sit in the devastation of that not knowing is the birth or the seed of that love. The fearlessness of love, even though that passage partly alludes to love in action in the world, is really an internal one. That seed of love, the birth of love, has to take place internally first, in the inner landscape of devastation, which is really a dimension of not knowing. It's a dimension in which the self is annihilated. It may appear as a human experience as despair or desolateness or barrenness or a sense of existential abandonment or aloneness or a hopelessness. And it may also arise as a depression. Now, I'm not saying that this has to last forever, but it's an internal landscape of death the death of hope. I know it sounds grim, but it truly is the seed of light. Yeah? And that's not necessarily something that we have to experience for a long time, but we have to be willing to experience it, to know it, to touch it, to taste it, to bow down to it, to walk one step at a time in that internal valley of death, if there is to be any resurrection, if there is to be any redemption into true love, your true nature as that love, which is the deepest, widest openness to what is. There's no idea of progress. There's no idea of even the spiritual path. All of that comes to an end because you live as that now and now and now and now. It's innocent, and there's a great courage in it. The courage of nakedness, the courage of not knowing. Yeah, love doesn't reach for a destination. Love doesn't have an agenda for the outcome. Love simply is. Love is when everything else has been demolished. You cannot help it. It's not something that then needs to be practiced. It cannot be helped. It simply moves in you as you. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to conceptualize it. You don't have to hold it up as a trophy. It's the end of all that.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
And now we have Spencer. Hello, Spencer.
Hello, Kelly. Hello.
Welcome.
In the last month, this pandemic has opened and continued. I found myself not knowing. As much as I kept trying to find out what's next, what's happening, the more I looked, the more I knew that I don't know. And it was startling that for years, I've said, well, I don't know. But I always believed I did. And so I sank into the not knowing, and I found there is a sense of peace. And as I sank in deeper, I noticed in my gut there was this huge contraction of fear. It's like, didn't want to not know. And I thought I had met it. And the next week, I hardly remember what happened, except I threw myself into watching shows on the internet, watching football games, and I hadn't watched a football game in 30 years. Whatever I could do to distract myself, I was running away. And I felt like I was sinking, and I felt like I was just going to sink into the slime of oblivion. And I felt helpless to do anything about it. And then I got an email from Amoda, which was just a checking in. And I saw that email and I felt so much love that it shattered this uh, illusion that I was immersed within. And in that moment, I sat there with them in front of the computer, the email in front of me, and I was able to sink into all of that without blame, without judgment. Just sink into it. And something that's coming out of this is I feel like it's really essential to, now that we're practicing, I don't want to practice social distancing. Physical distancing right now is a good idea. I really, I want to reach out to the people I love more and connect. And I'm thinking of maybe starting a little Facebook chat time every day where we can get together and connect. This time today is really wonderful and important to me. But every day, I think we can check in with people who are on similar kind of wavelength. I think we can help each other a lot. And so I want to state it, just to say it, and then to invite, I would invite your feedback about it, and yours, Kathy, and I would invite everybody's feedback.
So thank you, Spencer. My response to that, the thing that I want to speak to in that is, you see, we have been under the illusion of connection, before the pandemic, yes, before the so-called social isolation. We believed that, or many people have taken for granted, yes, an unconscious belief that we connect with those we love, with our friends and so on, with like-minded people. But much of that has been illusory, because we have, in that realm, we have connected in the realm of agreement, agreeing with each other's viewpoints, having similar spiritual beliefs, similar preferences. Underneath that, there has still been the root of division. The only way we can come to know our true connection, our true oneness, paradoxically and strangely, has come at a time, or during times, of seeming social or physical isolation. In this, and I'm not just talking about the connection we're having through the internet, although that is facilitating it, is the only place in which we are truly connected is in the unknown. Every human being is, whether they are consciously meeting life in the unknown, or unconsciously avoiding meeting life in the unknown, every human being lives in the unknown. Some with the illusion of control, and some with that illusion gradually being demolished. So we are being forced into that, and in that we come to know that every human being lives in that vulnerability, in that unknown, whether they consciously know it or don't consciously know it. And in that we are one. We come to know the unbrokenness within the broken. And in that we are if you like, united, in that we are connected, in that we are one. The details of our lives and our preferences and our social interactions are always going to be diverse, are always going to be varied. And in that, there is a kind of division. There is a group here, a group there, yeah, the different likes, different preferences, different movements and so on. But in this, we are united. In this, we are one. In this, we are together. So coming out of your self, yeah, the selfism that happened in the yeah, kind of an inner laziness and a retraction and an isolation, coming out of that and being present in this is the beginning and the revelation and the understanding and the realization of this oneness. And here is the true connection. Then from that place, what you do with it is up to you, whether that moves you to create more interactions through the internet with whoever, for whatever reason. If it moves you in another way, then that is what flowers on the surface. Yeah. And in that there is nourishment, yeah, from this deeper oneness, from this deeper connection that is here.
I loved when you, I think you used the term the devastation of not knowing. That is it. It's not just, oh, I don't know. It's to embrace that is beautifully devastating.
And that's where the resurrection is. That's where we are resurrected within that devastation. We're not resurrected as another contortion of the egoic self. We're resurrected as that openness, as that, that which is here as the unbroken in the midst of what falls apart and continues to fall apart. Yeah, we are that. We are that unbrokenness.
Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you.
We've got Susan Hill.
Susan Hill. Wonderful. Hello, Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we've got you. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something in that uncertainty. Like some people have been living with uncertainty maybe for a long time. Others have not. But it seems like the mind that wants to have its beliefs and concepts, and I am here, and it keeps grasping onto it at some level. Like it's like we are so programmed to be thinking that we need to understand, we need to know to survive, and it's so in us, and we're these individual separate people in the world, and we are in the world and all this. So it's like we have to turn the world upside down, or ourselves upside down, to see, no, that's not who we are. We are one. But it's like it's so in it. It's like a bodily function even to think I exist in this world, rather than the world exists in me. It's like it's almost like the DNA has to be reprogrammed or something to understand who we really are, right? That's why it's so hard to let go of form, of thoughts, of feelings, and see that that's just happening in me. It's not me. There's always something in us that wants to respond. That's me. Or is that you? It's too frightening to completely let go into that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that that is the habitual tendency. That is the paradigm that we've been trained into. Yes, so that is, yes. And so you can't force yourself out of it. But at some point, and again, it's an organic process. You can't use the same mind to overcome it. At some point, there can be a fundamental shift. A fundamental shift. You can't try to understand that shift with your mind, but life will bring you to that when you are ripe. When you are ripe. Along the way, it feels like effort. It feels like an effort to understand, an effort to remember, an effort to see things differently, an effort to put down the one who is trying to be the me, in who it believes itself to be the me in the world. It feels like an effort. There's not much you can do about that. You can only keep seeing it and keep seeing it and keep seeing it until the effort of that becomes so exhausting. It's like the fruit ripening on the tree. You can't force it. Nothing juicy will come from artificial ripening. Yeah? So you just keep seeing what you see. You just keep noticing how the me keeps on reforming itself apparently in the world. And you see how that creates a tightness. Does that create a tightness in you? Does that create a separation between you and what seems to be the world, you and what seems to be the life happening to me? And if that keeps on creating a tightness, does that tightness create suffering in you? Does it create resistance in you? And then a deeper willingness comes, and you just keep going and keep going until one day the fruit ripens. So we can listen, we can have this reflected, we can go to teachers, we can go to teachings, we can try to understand, and all of this is good. But in the end, the fruit will ripen. I mean, I can tell you this because I too have had a very powerful knowing mind in the past, not just in terms of the seeking of knowledge, either scientific knowledge or spiritual knowledge, but the self that needed to know of the future, to hope for a brighter future, to create its own reality, to create its internal landscape as well as its external landscape. Until something was eroded, something had to surrender. Something had to surrender because what was revealed was such an inner darkness that all grasping let go of itself. Yeah? So I don't know how it will be for you, but just addressing that question of how it seems to be difficult to overcome this, to find to turn the world around to this realization and this lived visceral experience that the world is in me. The world is in me. The world is appearing in consciousness, not I am appearing in the world, which changes our relationship. There's no more separation in that. But this has to come by itself at the right time.
Yeah, and it does feel like there's some very deep fear of completely letting go. You know, it's like there's some deep resistance in oneself, or at least in my case, that is just like, it's almost like it doesn't want to realize how I was wrong my whole life about who I was. Or, you know, it's like there's something there. It's just like, I will not let go, you know?
Well, again, when you feel the futility of that, yeah, when it comes to such a point where that refusal to let go, to realize that It was all an illusion. It was all back to front. Yeah, when that comes to like a pinhead that creates the utmost constriction, yeah, a kind of contraction, then something may release itself in that. Whilst it's bearable, then there's no real release in it. Yeah?
Right, and that's what it feels like. It's like unbearable. That's what I'm like.
It's coming to unbearability. Great. Then wait. When that unbearability has become so unbearable, there's no escape route for the mind then. Yeah, it can't cling to anything. Then perhaps the mind will collapse in on itself.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay,
I think.
Doina,
Okay, Doina.
and then Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, good. I think this was addressed in different ways, but maybe not quite in the way I'm trying to get at it. It's the issue of feeling loneliness. Like we spoke about connection and all, but I don't know, it didn't quite ring the way I have this loneliness is, it's kind of like a disease. It's a very painful, and I've always had it all my life since childhood. And a lot of things that I did in my life was to cover this. And it feels like it's more, like you said, that what's happening now with the virus brings up what's there in a way that you can't hide. And like I know I'm supposed to meet this feeling and sit with it until I no longer resist it. But occasionally I succeed, but like you said, with other things, it like feels like effort and a fight, like a resistance almost, like I have to do this now, you know, like I'm just gonna sit with loneliness and be okay with it. And it's just exhausting. And then when I actually don't fight it and it's just here, it feels like God doesn't love me. Why do I have this all my life, all the time? Like I can't fix it, and God doesn't fix it. And yeah, so maybe there's just like how much longer, you know, like all that stuff.
Yes. So you have come to the core belief in this, which is God doesn't love me. It's very common, you know, some variation of that. God doesn't love me. It's both perpetrated or handed down by religion or religions that we have to prove ourselves to be worthy, to be good enough to enter the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. So most people, at least in the modern civilization, will have a variation of that. So it's both a core belief embedded in religion, and it's also an existential experience, if you like, that we are born into form. We seemingly are born into a separate form, and out of the oceanic womb of the mother, the oceanic womb of oneness, where we only know an oceanic consciousness, no separation. There's no mother and me. There's no world and me. There's no womb and me. There is only this consciousness. Out of that, we're born into individuated consciousness, which becomes more individuated as we develop. We have to come to know ourselves as that. And then there's a yearning to return back to that oceanic consciousness while still apparently a separate form, an individual. So what you're getting in touch with is not a particular, specific wound to you, although it's very personal. It is a universal human experience, whether people are conscious of it or not. So in that sense, you're touching something very primary here, very fundamental, to touch that belief that I am excluded from God's love. I am excluded. I am here separate, a me, excluded from the totality. I am separate from the totality of existence, which is what really God is. So how can I know the love that is that totality when I believe or feel that there is an external entity called life or God or the world that I'm waiting to love me first before I can enter that? So it's an existential crisis, if you like, an existential issue that you're touching on. Perhaps, excuse me, in that, if you take that invitation, or that understanding, that broader vision of what this is, then you might be able to just be with it without taking it personally. That means touching the texture, allowing this texture of aloneness or loneliness to be touched, to be tasted, without the overlay of a narrative of there's something wrong with me. That's taking it personally. Everything is a texture. Every experience, every human experience is a textural field, a felt sense. It can be overlaid with beliefs, and that's okay. You come up against those. But underneath that belief, or inside that belief, is a texture, just a felt sense of this loneliness, which is actually a sense of separation. Now, you don't have to force yourself, but you can taste it when it's close to you without taking it personally.
Yeah, I think that if I thought of it as such a universal feeling, because like you hear, a lot of people talk about loneliness and that. But I describe it as a disease because it feels a bit, for me, like when I reach out to my friends or when I was in relationship or all the time, it feels like it's me always pulling at the others because of this neediness that I don't sense they have it. So I feel like that's why I call it a disease. It's just, it feels like for me, it's like wretched. Not like I see it in other people. I don't know.
Yeah, it becomes, well, you can call it a disease. It becomes a dysfunction if from that sensing of loneliness, aloneness, separation, you then move into the world with need. I need you to fill this hole in me, to heal this separation in me. Then you will create dysfunction in your life, dysfunctional relationships. Yeah. And you will feel that as a dysfunction, as a disharmony, as a disease. That's what it is. You're not at ease. But if you can come to this more existential state of just, see, loneliness is on the surface. Loneliness is when I am lonely, I must do something about it. I have to meet a friend or talk to somebody or find somebody to love me. That's loneliness. Aloneness is an existential issue where each of us, every human being, is invited to meet or come to terms with or acknowledge or realize or touch the essential nature of our aloneness. You're born alone and you die alone in the world of form. When you come to touch that all the way, aloneness, that aloneness transforms into an all oneness, because in consciousness you're not separate from anything. But first of all, before you start going to the surface of taking it personally, I'm alone, I have to reach, I'm lonely, I have to reach out, you have to allow yourself to fall into that and to simply touch the texture of it. When you're sitting still, when you're just here sitting, you are alone. There is an aloneness in that. If you go deep enough, there's no aloneness. Now, I'm not offering you the resolution, I'm offering you the deeper invitation of this. It stops being a dysfunction and starts being a doorway to absolute okayness with the singularity of your experience as an individuated human being. And there's a possible transformation in that. The transformation is that in consciousness, in the deepest, there's no separation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Finally, we're going to get to Christine.
I think she's been waiting a long time.
She has been waiting a long time. Phew.
Okay.
Yes, we got you.
Okay. All right. Hi.
Hi, I haven't seen you for a long time.
Yes, it's nice seeing you. Nice being here. Wow, I'm on the edge of tears. A lot is coming up. Okay, I'll try to put it together. Okay, since the coronavirus, I've been very active physically, being that I'm on a team, a sports team, where we compete and work out every day, swimming, synchronized swimming. So every day I would be either swimming or working out in the gym, one or the other. So that's gone. And I'm feeling kind of like a sloth and fearful that I'm going to go into, as someone else has mentioned, this deep place where I don't want to do anything. Kind of like I just want to watch movies and eat, nothing else, in a dark room. But I'm also a nurse, so I'm doing home care nursing right now, probably about 30 hours a week. But and I just want to mention that some of these background feelings may be from a painful experience of chronic fatigue, where for years I couldn't really move. I was in bed for a long time. So I do have this fear in my system of that coming back. I know what that's like if I don't take care of my body, you know, so I do try to take care of my body. So that doesn't happen to me, but it's not from not taking care of my body that happened. But what has come up, which that may be some of the background or be part of everything, is it's kind of strange. I think I'm going to give the example instead of saying what my mind thinks it is. My mind thinks it's what would I say? That I'm a victim. Kind of victim stuff is coming up, and this is how it came up, which is strange, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but I'm going to say it. The person, it's silly, but this is how my mind's working. The person I'm working with had this wonderful box of chocolates in her refrigerator, and immediately what came to my mind was, why don't I have a box of chocolates? And why didn't someone give me this box of chocolate? So I was feeling deprived, I guess. And then, so what I did was, well, I'll take care of that. I'll go buy myself a box of chocolates, which I did. And I usually don't crave that, but, and then I probably eat about, I think yesterday I had about 4 pieces of it, and today another 4 pieces. And I know that's not what it is. I'm like, oh, I'm not being taken care of. People are not giving me what I need. My needs are not met. I don't know. I don't know. So that's where I'm at with it, feeling like a sloth and then a victim.
Hmm. So here is your opportunity in this situation of being deprived of your sports, your usual routine of exercise, movement, and whatever, being deprived of that. Here is your opportunity to function as love. Love has no victim in it. It does what it takes to get the job done. The job that needs doing is taking care of yourself. Taking care of your integrity, your whole mind-body integrity.
I know this sounds silly. I feel, well, I did take care of myself. I bought myself a box of chocolates.
Was that truly taking care of yourself?
On an emotional level, it gave me something, but not really it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be speaking to it.
Yes. You took care of the one who felt like a victim and wanted to be taken care of.
Yes.
Yeah. The taking care of that I'm speaking of is a deeper intelligence than that. It has no victim in it. And there's nothing wrong if that's what the the movement is to treat yourself to some chocolates, great, but then there's no guilt in that. There's no payback in that. It just simply is what it is. Was it a gift or was it a punishment?
It doesn't, it didn't really, it didn't resolve the deeper issue.
Yeah. That you are feeling deprived.
But that might be a made up thing.
Yes, well, that's the question, that's the inquiry. Are you really deprived?
No.
Then rest in that deeper nourishment, a nourishment that doesn't come from chocolates or swimming or anything else. The nourishment that is already available to you.
I feel like I don't know how to do that, or it's like, how do I do that? It's like, I don't know how to do that.
The mind doesn't know how to do it. It's not an action. It's an internal dimension. A dimension of okayness, right here as it is. It neither needs to distract itself by slobbing in front of the television and eating lots of chocolates. Neither does it have to cling tight to a cherished and wholesome routine of swimming, but it can find a new way. Let that new way come to you. You can still walk. Yeah, I'm not talking, the external actions are not important. It's not, I don't know what you should do or shouldn't do or what moves you. You have to find out. But primary is that inner dimension of okayness. It stops you in your tracks. You don't have to do anything unless doing arises naturally. Yeah, stop, be still, wait. The true nourishment is in this, is in the pause. Not a pause that means you collapse into the poor me or the victim or the inner child that needs to have its sweetening. Yeah, but just stop and pause and wait and see what wants to move from that. This is a collapse of our world. Our world is made up on a mundane level of our daily routines, our daily structures, the things that we want to do, expect to do, like to do. This is a collapse of our world so that we can discover what is more true, more present, more real than our self-constructed world. Most probably we can do those things again, but first we must move from a different inner dimension. That's what's happening here. That's the deeper significance of this virus pandemic situation. Those that listen will give birth to a new world within themselves. Those that succumb to the fear of the world falling apart, the personal world or the collective world, well then, I don't know what will happen. There will be more stress and more fear and more panic. Here is the invitation, which is why you're on this call today.
Okay. Is
Yes,
that okay,
thank you.
Christine?
Yes, thank you for the invitation. I accept it.
And welcome, 1,000 welcomes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
We have one more question, if that's okay, Amoda.
Yes, yes.
We've
And
got
I'd probably
Nicola.
like to close it. Yes.
Nicola, and then we need to close it.
Yes.
I'm trying to get her audio undone, but I don't seem to be able to. Nicola?
Can you hear me
There
now?
she is.
Yes, we can,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you. So this is a short one. I've been meaning to ask my other teacher, and I've forgotten. And it's just a simple thing, but anyway, it's for several months now. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens from time to time. That my mind is preoccupied, full of thoughts or something, and all of a sudden, and I'm not thinking about anything funny, but all of a sudden I erupt into laughter and things seem absolutely absurd, and I laugh and laugh and laugh. Then I have a little cry, then I laugh, and then I'm like, what is this? And am I going mad? Perhaps, oh well. And it just happened a few days or so ago again, and it just comes kind of unbidden and without anything going on that would make me laugh. So that's my question. If you have any, I guess I don't really think that I'm going mad, but I guess I'm not sure.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Something's unraveling. Energy is moving.
Mm.
Joy and the joy of laughter and the joy of tears is causeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then let it happen. No reason. It doesn't have to have a reason. It doesn't have to have an understanding. It doesn't have to have a cause. Life is ridiculous. Reality, this human experience is ridiculous. When I say ridiculous, I mean paradoxical. Paradoxical. That's why laughter and tears are very close together.
Mm.
Then let it. It is simply energy moving.
Mm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Let the deep belly laugh come, the cosmic joke. Let the tears of an opening heart, come. That's the nature of life. It is duality, and laughter and tears reveal that duality. And the conventional mind needs to have a reason. We laugh at jokes. We need to have a reason for tears. We cry about something we are sad about. But of themselves, they are causeless and simply part of the divine movement of life. How wonderful that there is something free enough in you to allow that, for that to be happening, to be unfolding. Without any process, without any technique. You know, there are meditations that take you deep into laughter for no reason, followed by tears for no reason. 3 days of one and 3 days of the other, until you have transcended duality and live in the paradox. Well, here it is happening in you without having to go to some strange meditation for 6 days or however long it takes. Yeah. Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it, I'm afraid, from us. Amoda, closing words, I would like to say, just practically speaking, I'm going to send out a link tomorrow for the audio, for 2 audio downloads for you. There'll be Zoom links. They'll be available for a week, maybe 2 weeks. That's no problem. Any problem with it, get back to me and I'll see if I can help you. Thank goodness this afternoon worked a little better than this morning. It seemed to go flowingly. I would like to share just one personal thing from my heart, and that is that Amoda and I seem to be rooted in this unknownness. We've built our house on this unknownness that was being referred to. For me, this is our time. This is Amoda and I's house has been built over and over and over again on this unknownness of life. But here we are, everybody's plunged into the same spaces we've been talking about for quite a long time now. Well, welcome.
Welcome.
This is
welcome
it.
into our world.
This is what it's like. When I talk about being a warrior, this is what I'm talking about. There's no fighting. It's built on emptiness. It's built on the mystery. It's built on openness. It's being able to somehow hold the damn lot and let it keep falling. And there's a power for us here now. There's a beautiful, exquisite, divine, tender, open power available for all of us. And even though it's terrifying, I go through the terror and I'm still here, still standing, still open, still loving, guys. So I bless everybody who is willing at the moment to open deeper, and all of you people who've joined us today, 1,000 blessings to your heart. Keep going. We keep going, and we keep going. That's what I've got to say. Amoda?
Thank you. Yes, it's, I've been saying for a long time, it's no longer a spiritual issue, it's a human issue. Yeah, this whole thing about our spirituality and the preciousness of that. And of course that has been the foundation. That's where we've grown in that, where we've opened in that, and where we've evolved in that. And now here it is. This is it. It's no longer a spiritual issue, it's a human issue. So that everything about the embodiment of awakening, the embodiment of enlightenment, the living of the truth of this openness, here it is in the very nitty-gritty reality of the world as it appears as a physical virus, and all the other structures that are tumbling down in that whole process. So yes, wonderful. What a blessing and opportunity this is. Finally. It's all worthwhile. Yeah. So thank you again for being here. We have a weekend, if you want to dive in again with us, coming up in the next 3 weeks, is it?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
In 3 weekend time, we have a weekend retreat that is open to everybody. You're welcome to dive in with us. It's called Falling Open in a World Falling Apart. Otherwise, I am part of a global unity meditation that has been going on that will go on for 24 hours, put on by an organization called Unify. They have millions and millions of viewers around the world and contributors. I'm speaking at 5:15 Pacific time, just for 30 minutes, a kind of transmission, and then there'll be a global meditation this evening. If you're interested in joining us on that,
I've just sent the link to everybody in chat. It's facebook.com/unify.
It's free, so it's going to be a Facebook Live broadcast, free, with millions of people around the world. There are other people speaking like Deepak Chopra and Muji. I think they've already done their bit, but there's musicians as well, Michael Franti and whatever. Anyway, I've been invited to do that. See you there if you wish to join us. otherwise.
Okay, I've got one idea. I'm going to unmute everybody and we can do a big namaste.
Hey.
Okay, namaste, everybody.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you
Amoda.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Amoda,